Next, I'm going to take a roll call. Councilor Murray,
Here.
Councilor Knight,
Here.
Councilor Burkett,
Here.
Councilor Parker,
Here.
Councilor Woolman,
Here.
and I, Kevin Lucero, am present. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
moved. I'll second that one then.
Okay, Councilor Burkett, second by Councilor Murray. All in favor, please just raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to the only item on the agenda of old business, the hearing of the continuance of the appeal to the governing body of Site Development Plan 20-02 Dendro Technologies. My name is Kevin Lucero. I am Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Roque has recused herself from this hearing as she is one of the neighbors within 300 feet of the property in question, and she knows both the appellant and the appellee. That means that I will be functioning as the presiding officer in this hearing. The hearing today is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the decisions will be made by the members of the governing body. Now, I'm going to ask the appellant to please identify herself. Ms. De Niro.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon, ma'am. And you are representing Ms. Antoinette Roybal.
Yes, I am.
And just for the record, is she present?
Yes, she is. She's here and she's on the video. It's under Janae Roybal, but that is Antoinette. And I believe Janae Roybal may also speak this evening.
Okay, thank you. Now the appellee, Richard and Jacob Thaler.
We're here.
Here.
Oh, am I pronouncing that right? Thaler, or is it Thaler?
It's taller,
Thaler, okay. that's
taller,
right.
no H.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone that the scope of this appeal will be limited to the application for the site plan and approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission to allow the placement of a new building at 4404 Corrales Road, Corrales, New Mexico. All considerations and arguments should be limited to the effects of the proposed 2,400 square foot building. We are recording this meeting tonight so that a complete, clear record can be created of everything being said. However, please remember that we cannot create an accurate record with people talking over one another. So I am going to be strict about people talking when others are speaking. If people start to talk over each other, I will stop them so we can get a clean record. The council will have the opportunity to ask questions. Council, if you have any questions, please just get my attention so that I make sure that I see you, recognize you, and let you speak. The question should be focused on clarifying the record or the testimony given and should not include new information or evidence being offered by a counselor through asking of the question. I'm also going to assume that everyone's demeanor is going to be appropriate and there will not be any badgering or argumentation of witnesses. I will call people on that as well. We discussed this at the last meeting, but just a reminder that this is a de novo hearing and the evidence for this hearing is being made up of everything in the record from the Planning and Zoning Department, the P&Z hearing, and what was submitted for today's packet and what was introduced for the first time here this afternoon. If either party has exhibits not included in this packet, please email them to Aaron, and I will say it, I will spell it out for y'all, but Aaron will put the email, his email address in the chat if it's required. It's AGJULLIN@corrales-nm.org, and he will put it in the chat so that they may be placed on the screen for viewing. We also discussed that the process. We also discussed this process at the last meeting. First, I will call on the Planning and Zoning Administrator, Ms. Rory Stout, to give an outline of the case consisting of the review of application, her review, and what has happened before this at P&Z. Then we will move on to presentations by the appellant and the appellee. Each party will be limited to 20 minutes. The appellant may reserve part of their time for rebuttal after the presentation by the appellee. The parties may request more time if the matter being heard is extremely complicated, and upon their request, the governing body agrees. During your presentations, you may call witnesses who will be sworn in by the clerk. After presentation, the opposing party will be asked if they have any questions for the witnesses presented. All cross-examination of witnesses should go through me. Counselors or I may have questions of the witnesses limited to clarifying the evidence, the parties' arguments, or the decision of the P&Z. After both parties have presented and cross-examination has occurred, I will close the hearing and the council will go into deliberations. This can be done in open or closed session as allowed by the Open Meetings Act. All decisions will be made in public. The governing body may grant the appeal and reverse the P and Z decision, deny the appeal and affirm the decision by the P and Z, modify this decision with new findings, or remand the case back to P and Z if the record before the governing body is not sufficient to ensure its decision will be in compliance with the village or other governing law. Once a decision is made, then there will be a direction to our attorney to prepare a written decision and findings of fact and conclusions of law supporting the governing body's decision based on the facts established in this record. The hearing date shall be set at that time for the vote on the form of decision as soon as practicable. After the approval of the final decision, the appeal will be concluded. Are there any questions at this time? Ms. De Niro.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to know if it would just help expedite the process to determine whether or not there's any exhibits that are going to be objected to. That way we know ahead of time and either make those arguments now or allow all of them to be admitted.
Well, I believe that once you admit the exhibit, I think we determined that at that time. Mr. Audio, correct me if I'm wrong here. We'll submit the exhibits when you present them.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, sorry, I think that it would be better to do that in context of what is being introduced that's new evidence, unless the parties agree that they stipulate that they're not objecting to either party's evidence.
And that evidence would be found in the packet right now, or is this something that you want to introduce tonight, brand new, Mr. De Niro?
It would be part of the packet already.
Okay. If it's part of the packet, we already have it. So I don't believe it's a matter of being anything new that's introduced. Just so that we are clear, I want to make it very clear on how this is going to go. So I want to make sure we're fair to both parties, to their both presentations, and I want to make sure that the council has an apt opportunity to ask any questions that they may feel that is pertinent. So just to be clear, what we're going to have is we're going to have the background and review by Planning Zoning Administrator Ms. Stout. The appellant will then present their case. The appellee will have an opportunity to question any witnesses by the appellant. Then we'll go on to allowing the appellee to present their case. Once they're done, the appellant will have a chance to question any witnesses they provide. We will go on, and then at that point, the counselors will have an opportunity to ask any questions that they may feel they need to know. And then if time is reserved, the appellant may have, if time is reserved, they have time for a rebuttal. Are there any questions on that structure? Okay, Mr. Nero, how many witnesses do you plan to call?
3.
3? Okay, 3 witnesses. Okay. Okay, if there's not any questions, we will proceed.
No questions here.
Okay. Ms. Stout, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors. Whenever there's a site development plan before the Planning and Zoning Commission, I do a summary for the commissioners about that particular application. And in our code for site development plans, there's a laundry list of items applicants must show, such as proposed new structures, any existing buildings, property lines, roads, streets, easements, locations on site for water, septic, parking, etc. And then also in our code, there are some little more subjective items, one of which is the noise, glare, or odor effects of the proposed use on adjoining properties. So those things are always in my summary. So getting to my memo to the governing body, on March 17th, 2021, the Village of Corrales Planning and Zoning Commission heard and approved a Phase 2 site development plan for an expansion to the existing Dendro Technology woodworking shop at 4404 Corrales Road. The applicant is requesting to add a 2,400 square foot steel building, which will house woodworking equipment. So that is his Phase 2. That is the site development plan we're talking about today. Property is zoned C, neighborhood commercial. 2 conditions were given with the commission approval: that the buffer fencing on the south side of the property be constructed immediately, and also that the applicant work with the building official to cover the proposed metal building in material that is village code compliant. The original phase 1 site development plan was heard by the commission on September 16th, 2020, whereby the commercially zoned property's use for a woodworking business and a shelter housing a bandsaw was approved. That Ms. Roybal appealed that decision, and the governing body upheld the commission's approval for that first appeal. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I have a whole heck of a lot of pieces of paper here with other stuff on it, and if there are any questions, I can certainly answer them, but that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. Ms. De Niro, are you planning on reserving any of your time for rebuttal?
Yes,
You are, okay.
yes.
All righty, ma'am. You may proceed. Yeah, you may proceed. Yes.
Just before you start, Ms. De Niro, is there a specific time you want me to let you know how much time you have left? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that kind of thing?
That would be excellent. If you can give me the 5-minute warning, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And just to clarify for everyone, so Ms. De Niro, you plan on presenting for 15 minutes, your case in chief, and reserve 5 minutes?
Yes. Does that include my examination?
That would be under the rules right now. That would be your entire case. If that doesn't seem like sufficient time, this would be the time to ask for the body to give you more time if it seems appropriate to them.
So the total amount of time is 20 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
I would ask for an additional 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yes.
Counsel?
Is there any objection, Mr. Toller, from the appellee if both sides get an extra 10 minutes?
I am, no objection.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, sorry, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, it's up to you and council to give the additional time under that circumstances. It seems reasonable to me, given it's just an additional 10 minutes per side.
Does anybody have any objection to an extra 10 minutes on the council? I'm
No.
seeing no's. Okay, there'll be no objection to the 10 minutes.
Ms. De Niro, would you still like 5 minutes, or would you like a different amount of time reserved?
I would like a 10-minute time reserve.
Okay, I will let you know if we get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. De Niro, please proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to do just a very small intro, and then I'm going to call my first witness. This appeal by Ms. Roybal and her daughter, Janae Roybal, is grounded in the fact that they strongly object to any development, and especially an expansion, which is definitely relevant here, of a sawmill right in the middle of their neighborhood, essentially next door to them. They are extremely against it for a number of reasons. The annoyance consisting of noise, of the sound that's emitting from that area, because they appear to be the closest neighbors to the area of where the location of the saw actually is. The appearance is also not attractive, considering that they are located in the heart of Corrales, which is a quaint, beautiful village, and now it consists of what looks like a manufacturing company or a factory or something industrial. It just does not, the character and the sound and the look does not fit in with the village of Corrales. They also don't believe that it's supported by the current laws in place in the city of Corrales. The zoning laws don't actually support a sawmill. In fact, in looking at all of the zoning laws in Corrales, there should not be a sawmill whatsoever in the city. And finally, my client would just like for it to be on the record that she feels as though her voice has not been heard properly, that there has been unfair treatment by this body who is reviewing and listening. And she's hopeful that this is an opportunity to be treated fairly. So the witness that I first want to call, I believe I want to call Janae Roybal first, if that's okay, Antoinette.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
And just before we get started here, Janae, as a witness, I'm going to have to swear you in. If you wouldn't mind raising your right hand and stating your name and your address, please, for the record.
Janaea Roybal, 4372.5 Corrales Road.
Great. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. De Niro.
Thank you. Ms. Roybal, can you please state your full name for the record?
Janaea Lynn Roybal,
And how long have you lived in Corrales?
40 plus years.
And who lives with you?
My mother, my daughter, and that's it at this time.
How old is your daughter?
She's 16.
Okay. And do you know Mr. Teller, Rick Teller?
I do,
And how do you know him?
as a neighbor.
Okay. And do you know him because he lives next door to you or because he works next door to you?
Work, and I used to see him drive his bike and see him at local places. Just, yeah, and at the business also.
And do you know his family?
I do not.
And how do you feel about Dendro Technology being next door to you and also expanding its business?
Well, I just feel that it's loud. It's getting louder as the days go on. I used to have communication with Rick, and I used to send him videos when it would get loud, and it was just too much for me to maintain. Therefore, I stopped doing that. And now these last couple of days after the last meeting, I just haven't been able to focus with work. It's just gotten louder. So, I mean, the barrier wall doesn't help much that he put up. I mean, we were trying to work with him. He came the other day also, and we spoke, and there was no noise. I mean, but when the saw is running, it's loud and it's annoying. And I did send you some videos of a couple of days ago in the backyard. My bedroom window is closer to the sawmill, and it's loud.
Okay, and I want to use this opportunity to play those recordings, and I won't leave them on very long because they are loud and annoying. I don't think anybody wants to hear them, but I do want the commission to have an idea of what you're living through. So if I can go ahead and play that, is that okay with you?
Ms. De Niro, just to clarify, were these heard at the P&Z?
No,
So these were the ones that P&Z said they would not be heard.
these are the ones that were said that they could not be heard. And then there's a new one from last week, the day after our last hearing, or 2 days after the last hearing.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I guess we could check with the opposing party to see if they oppose these, and then we could discuss for the council if they believe this is evidence that should be heard at this hearing. Mr. Toller?
I don't believe, based on the outline that the Mayor Pro Tem gave of evidence, that this has any bearing on the case at all. And I listened to the 3 recordings, and 2 of them are not recordings of the saw. And based on the video, they were recorded well before the March 17th meeting, because you can see that the barrier wall isn't up. So they're not even relevant. They're recordings of a chainsaw. And it's not clear to me. One of them is probably from our place. I can hear my grandsons and my son-in-law at the very end of it. So I just don't see that they're in any way relevant, because they have no bearing on the building that we're asking to have built. And so I would object to having them introduced and heard.
Thank you, Mr. Toller. Ms. Stout, when these were offered, or some of these were offered at P&Z, why were they not allowed into the record?
From my recollection, the March 17th meeting was to discuss the 2,400 square foot building. And so it was, we talked about this on Thursday, and Mr. Toller has a better memory than I do.
That's my memory as well, that they said it has nothing to do with the matter at hand, and they didn't need to hear them.
Now, during the first Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, where phase 1 was heard, sound was discussed at length. There were decibel readings with the saw running. So the sound was, the use of the property and the sound level were discussed at length at that time. So during this March 17th meeting, the commission was focused on the application before it, which was to add a 2,400 square foot enclosed building. Sound was discussed once again in terms of what type of insulation would be in that building.
Just so the council and Mayor Pro Tem understand this stuff. So what the issue was is the saw is already approved as a use to be there, and it was done at a prior hearing. And there was an appeal to council, and it was approved at council. Is that right?
Correct.
So the argument is, are these relevant to this hearing?
Correct.
Ms. DeNiro, do you have a response to that?
I do, thank you. Yes, the sound of the saw and what my clients are experiencing is absolutely relevant. Not only are they having to deal with the sound of the saw, but now there's going to be an expansion to this business, which is going to cause more machinery and more noise. So all of it taken together, and just hearing the annoyance of this initial sound, which has also already been approved, even though the council has never listened to this noise from my client, is definitely and absolutely relevant. And the fact that I saw in the exhibits for today's hearing, Ms. Stout on, I believe, May 13th, along with the ordinance officer, went out to check the sound again. And it states that the owners, which I don't know who they're referring to because they don't state a name, but the owners were not aware that they were coming out. It was kind of just a pop-in. And it states in their exhibit that there was no noise. So I want to produce evidence, particularly with evidence from last week, shortly after the hearing, demonstrating that there is loud noise emitting from that area where the saw is, and it's believed to be the actual saw and not a chainsaw or anything, any other machinery. And my clients are here to authenticate that evidence, and then Mr. Teller can respond if he thinks it's not his actual saw. And there's a little bit of video, but primarily it's the sound we want everyone to hear, because that is the actual sound that my clients are dealing with, not the sound that Mr. Teller has prepared for the law officer or Ms. Stout when they do come out and actually listen to it. Whether he's prepared because he knows he's under investigation, or because it's on appeal right now, yes, you know, I think that it's probably lowered at volume when they've come out. But this is when he has no idea. The evidence that I have today is evidence when he has no idea that they're recording him, and it's what they're actually experiencing. And I think that it's extremely important that this be the opportunity to finally share it with all the members here.
Ms. De Niro, thank you.
Go for it. Let her go for it.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and councilors, do you feel like it would be appropriate to hear evidence of the sound of the saw, which is not part of the issue that's up for approval today because it already exists and has been approved? If there's any issue on it, it would be an enforcement issue, but it's not. The saw is not before you today to approve or disapprove. It was already approved. So just with that clarification, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think you should have a discussion with council and this to decide this. And I think we should do it pretty quick because Ms. De Niro may want to introduce evidence about the building.
Okay, and for discussion, I'm trying to reach what we're here for. We're here for a 2,400 square foot building. I don't know if the argument is what machines he might put in later, or the machines he has are too loud now. What my only worry is that, you know, we've already heard the sound of this saw. I don't know what this has to do with a 2,400 square foot building. Any other thoughts from any other councilors? Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors. My concern is that the recordings that were provided to us, I have no way of knowing the calibration of the equipment that was used or the sound levels that were obtained. Typically, from an engineering point of view, you would like to have a sound meter that has been calibrated and with numbers that are available from the position where the recordings were recorded. So my concern is that even though they may have a sound of a saw in the background, I have no idea what level or what relevance it may have. So that's my chief concern.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Councilor Parker?
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, missed out a quick question for you. When there is a noise ordinance violation, what's standard operating procedure for your office?
Well, our noise ordinance basically says that for commercial use and for contractors, your quiet hours are between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So if there's something going on after 10 p.m. or prior to 7 a.m., that would be a code enforcement call. Our code enforcement officer would go out, hopefully hear the sound, and write a notice of violation to whoever is, creating the noise.
So to follow that up, so in a commercially designated zone as this one, or commercial neighborhood zone, there is no specific ordinance in terms of decibel levels that something has to comply with?
Correct.
So it seems to me that I think that I've heard other people talk about is the case before us is an appeal to an application for a building. And if we're going to listen to some saws, I agree. I'm not sure what that has to do with this application of the building. If the appellant or Pelly, I forget which, if the person filing the appeal to the approval has something specifically against this building, I think that is the information that we need to see right now. I mean, if this is already an approved item on the piece of property and it was appealed, there are other avenues to pursue. However, I do not think that is what's before us today. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? I have to tend to agree with Councilor Murray and Councilor Parker. I'm not quite sure what these recordings, how relevant they are to a site development plan for a 2,400 square foot building. I just don't see where they would add to this. I don't see how we would be able to determine for any future noise. I don't know how we can tell what he's gonna put in that building in the future. Although we do have remedies for that with our code enforcement and furthermore. So I don't see the relevance of these recordings.
May
Mr.
I
Rogers?
just make one more statement? And I stated this before, but it wasn't addressed. Ms. Stout submitted a letter from herself and also the code enforcement officer stating that they didn't hear any noise. Now, we have evidence to rebut that and to demonstrate or to debunk it. There is noise coming from the saw on at Mr. Teller's business, which is directly across or next door to my client's property. And from my client's perspective, which has not been heard, her perspective has not been heard. What she's having to hear already with just the saw alone, an expansion to this business is going to be a hardship, a substantial hardship. And so if there's evidence supporting this expansion by Ms. Stout and the law enforcement officer, we believe that we should have the opportunity to use our evidence to debunk their statements, which all they have are statements. They don't actually have a recording. They don't have photographs. They don't have anything of that nature. It's just a statement. They're not notarized, so they're not affidavits, but they're just statements made by them.
Thank you, Mr. Nero. Mr. Audio?
Ms. De Niro, I hear what you're saying. However, the problem is that whether the saw is making noise that a saw makes was part and parcel of the original case when that was approved, and it was appealed to council, but it was not appealed to district court, and therefore it stands. And whether there is a building added or not, I think you should take this opportunity to present evidence of why this application is a problem for you. We hear that it could result in extra noise. Do you have any evidence of that?
An extra noise in addition to the noise that was already approved?
The saw's been approved
Right.
in a previous hearing. So the point is there's a new application for a building. What is wrong with this application? That's what the council has to decide tonight. And if you have evidence to say there's something wrong with this application, this is your opportunity to.
Yes, I thought you were asking me a question specifically to the noise. So if it's objected to, then I will continue. Did that go into my time, those side arguments?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think she should be able to continue all of the argument about the time, about that use. I mean, it is her motion. She wanted to introduce it and it's her time. However, let's let her see what case she has against the building.
Absolutely. I'll ask the village clerk to add whatever time we took here to her total time.
I will, thank you.
And also, I'll ask everybody to make sure if you are not speaking to please mute your microphone, please. Thank you. Mr. Nero, please proceed.
Okay. So I was asking questions to Janae. I see Antoinette, but is Janae still there? Yes, okay. So Janae, we'll continue I'll just continue asking you questions and let's just get straight to the point. Do you believe that the loudness of the saw is relevant and impacts the expansion that Mr. Teller is applying for?
Yes.
Can you explain why and why it bothers you?
Well, because I feel that this have all been backwards. So this approval and whatnot, I thought there was supposed to be fences, barriers that he had to build. It seems like the process is backwards. We didn't know of anything. I know he's told my ex-boyfriend about some business coming up. I didn't get any letters. I know this is just crazy that this is all happening, but it is kind of like a backwards thing. So, I mean, yeah, the noise, the sawmill, I mean, I don't think that Dollars would like a saw going at their front door. step, or, maybe they will, I don't know, but maybe I should go back there and see if that'll bother them. I don't know. It's just, it's really annoying. And, I mean, it has affected us in many ways. I mean, we used to go walking a lot, and now it's kind of, we have a lot of tension going on just from, the people there and the people at my home. So, there's a lot of things that have changed. And Corrales used to be a nice, peaceful, quiet place to live. And right now it's not. It's getting commercialized, like I said in my affidavit, and pretty sad. But I mean, I know they want businesses to grow here, and I understand that. But this type of business, sawmill, I don't think would, they're very dangerous also. And I wouldn't think that they would open one right in the middle of Corrales Village,
And what do you think is dangerous about it?
Well, when I was researching them, I mean, there's a lot of accidents there. You research in other states. It's one of the dangerous, businesses that they have. If you look it up.
And what about the expansion of the building? What are your concerns specifically to the expansion?
Well, expansion, what I don't understand is they didn't let them build a house there, but they're gonna let them build a big business back there. I don't understand that. A big building would block our view of the mountains, would block all the animals that are becoming, that are not coming anymore. I have 5 bird feeders out there every year for 20 plus years. And right now I have not got any hummingbirds, and the birds are not going to the feed. So I don't know if it's what is going on, but I'm pretty sure it's the noise.
And are you aware of what he's actually going to be doing with that business? I'm sorry, that building?
I think he's going to put the saw or whatnot. I don't know. Really not sure.
And are your concerns about the expansion with the building is the expansion of the business itself, that it's going to cause more traffic?
Oh, definitely. There already has been.
And what kind of traffic?
There has been trucks, semis, forklifts operating. I see them go through the back of Corrales on the back of Hampton Road. They don't use this area by the house, but I mean, the operation of the machines and the forklifts are pretty loud as well.
And what is the noise from the traffic, from the vehicles that are coming through? What does that sound like?
I think it's just the beeps, and when they unload or whatnot, when they reverse, the alarm you've been hearing, and just a lot of people around. I've been taking pictures, and there has been a lot of people traveling down Hampton, maybe to look for the business, because I know it is hard to find on GPS. We're hard to find. We're not even on a GPS. So maybe they're looking for his business. I don't know. But there has been already.
Okay. And when you say people, these appear to be his customers or contractors or employees?
Both.
And primarily men?
Yes.
Do you feel unsafe around there?
I don't feel unsafe. I just feel that, again, this is a village, and this is it's supposed to be serene and quiet, and I believe that this business is just going to make it not a peaceful village to live in and reside in anymore.
And your daughter is 16 and she goes to school, correct? Or she's going to school remotely?
She has both right now.
Mm-hmm. And do you work remotely?
Yes, I work from home.
And can you just describe how it interferes with your work, the noise?
It's the noise. It's just a saw. I mean, it's a buzzing. It's annoying. It's not like traffic. It's not a horn. It's not an alarm. It's a buzzing saw running. And so, I mean, I thought I could handle it, but now that it's getting louder and louder, and I've been recording it, it's getting worse, and he hasn't even expanded yet. So yeah, I am concerned.
Okay. And does it actually literally interfere with, you know, phone calls and doing something like this, like a Zoom meeting, when you're doing that with work?
Well, when the saw's running, yes, because my dogs, and you can hear, they go wild when the saw goes. And I recorded that as well. And this was days after the meeting. And I had, and I work with attorneys, and I have a state job, and I always have to either go in a back room or go in my truck. Just to, you know, because it's loud.
Okay. And are you afraid of what the appearance of this new expanded building is going to look like on your street?
Definitely. We have a beautiful view of the mountains, and that's just going to block our neighbors, or, you know, the elderly people that live down the road. We're going to just see a big old commercialized building.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions for you, Janae. And before I asked for my next witness, I actually want to call not my own client, but actually Rick Teller. But I don't know if that is correct procedure. If I can go ahead and call him right now, that would work for me.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that would be within the rules for her to call Mr. Teller if she wishes to.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Nero.
Thank you.
And just real quick, Mr. Toller, if you would raise your right hand, state your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Rick Toller. No H. My address is 483 Hanson Road, Corrales, New Mexico.
Great. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. De Niro.
Thank you. Okay, can you just state your name once more for the record?
Rick Toller.
Thank you, Mr. Toller. And what do you do for a living?
I am retired and I currently work in the dendrotechnology business as an unpaid partner.
Partner, okay. And is it a partnership, or what is the entity?
It's a LLC, and my son is the owner. I don't actually remember specifically, but I think on paper, I'm a minority partner. I've invested some money in the business.
Okay. And why are you representing the appellee in this case as the minority?
Because I have 40 years of experience in the woodworking business, and I have some experience in these kinds of what we call them, conflicts, and I'm slightly more articulate than my son.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live at 483 Hanson Road, which is about 4/10 of a mile from the business.
So is it correct to say that Ms. Roybal and her daughter live closer to your business than you do?
Yes.
And who owns the land that the business is on?
At the time that the business was formed, and I believe at the time, the March 17th planning and zoning meeting, the land was owned by my daughter and my son-in-law, Garrett Allen and Emily Allen. But in the interim, my son and I, my wife, my son and I, and have purchased the property from my daughter.
And that just happened within the last
That
week?
just happened in the last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Okay. And what would you call the type of business that you run? What is it called?
Is it a woodworking business?
Okay, I want to use, or I don't know how Aaron wants to do this. If I
You-
share,
you want- You
but-
want to present the
I
picture
want
that shows the sawmill?
the exhibit 4 from the
Yes.
Secretary of State. If everybody has a packet, it's in there. It's exhibit 4. And if you take a look at it, it says the type of business there. It's actually a
Yes,
sawmill.
it does. It says it's a sawmill. I agree.
So why
Would you
don't,
like me to explain why?
yes, please. That's what my next question.
All right. When you apply for a business on that website, there are a number of categories, and you can't put your own in. The only one that was close enough that was sawmill, and I put it there because the machine that we use in our woodworking business is sold as a sawmill. And that is the reason that I use the word sawmill. If I had had any idea that it would come to this, I would have put something else, I suppose.
Okay,
But there wasn't any other option in the list of names for me to choose from.
so are you saying it is not a sawmill?
The machine is a sawmill, yes, but we do not use it as a sawmill.
What do you use it for?
We are a craft woodworking business, and we make planks of wood, and we sell them individually to other craftspeople, and we make furniture from them ourselves.
How is that different from a sawmill?
Well, I didn't think that that we would be entering into this territory, and because I don't think it's at all relevant to the matter at hand. So I guess I'm going to have to ask the only because I don't want to take up a huge amount more time. I'm going to have to ask the lawyer, Mr. Audio, whether this is something that I have to answer. I'm prepared to answer it, but I don't think it's
Well,
I don't think it's relevant, and I don't think that that we should all have to sit through this.
I understand your objection, Mr. De Niro. Mr. Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, with your indulgence. Ms. De Niro, you're presenting a whole bunch of evidence about the prior case. And while you have that right to do that, the evidence that you presented about the building is what is on the agenda tonight, and what the council has an ability to approve or disprove. The description of what the businesses was that he does is all on the record in the past case. So, I mean, if you want to go down this road, I mean, Mr. Toller, you can answer the question, or you don't have to. It's your call.
Okay, let me just cut to the chase then. I can explain to you the difference between what we do and a sawmill. If you had done the kind of research that you probably should have done, you could have looked up, for instance, Walatoa Lumber or Spotted Owl Timber in Santa Fe, or let's see, what's the other one? Groff Lumber on 4th Street in Albuquerque. Where's the fourth? Wholesale Lumber in Bernalillo. But just to take an example, and I'm glad to use up as much of your time as you want me to. Walatoa Lumber produces between 3 and 5 million board feet of lumber a year. That is 60,000 to 100,000 board feet a week. Probably that would be the equivalent of, I don't know, 3 or 4.
Mr.
Prob-
Teller, I'm
probably-
going to interrupt you real quickly because I didn't ask you what the difference was between your.
Well, I'm telling you what the difference
Well,
is.
no, between your business
sawmill.
and another business. I just,
No, I'm
what is the
telling you what a
difference?
sawmill is, and then I'll tell you.
Ms.
what my-
De Niro, please don't interrupt the witness. You asked the question.
Yeah,
he's answering a different question.
I'm answering your
Then
question.
if, I mean, you called the witness, you're asking the questions, let him finish.
Thank you. And they have a 17-acre sawmill. Spotted Owl, located near Santa Fe. They consider, and by the way, Wallatoa, I spoke to Pat at Wallatoa. He considers himself a small mill operation by national standards. And he produces 100,000 board feet a week of sawmill lumber. Spotted Owl is also a very small semi-industrial lumber mill by their own description. They process a full semi-truck full of logs every week into dimensional lumber, 2 saws, 2.5 acres. They use every square foot of it. Let's see, Groff Lumber, a commercial lumber yard on 4th Street. They don't mill raw logs, but they have a Wood-Mizer like ours, and they resize larger timber that they get from elsewhere in New Mexico. 1 truckload a week, sometimes 2. Their lumber yard operation takes up 3 acres, and their saw runs most of the day, 5 days a week. They buy their lumber from other small local sawmills that produce 30 to 40,000 board feet a week. Then we have, let's see. We have
Mr.
Leo,
Toller, if I
wholesale.
may,
I'm
Mr.
sorry?
Toller, if I may, just because we get the picture of
Okay, you get the
these
picture.
high volume, how much is your volume?
For comparison, Dendro Technology produces between 500 and 700 board feet a week. Unique individual planks on about 1/2 acre of land. Our saw could probably produce a little more, but we have no way to store or manage more material, and we're not interested in volume. We produce individual planks for use in craft applications. The price tag on the saw may be really impressive to someone who doesn't know much about woodworking. Brand new, it's actually more than what Mrs. De Niro indicates, but it's among the smaller units that Wood-Mizer makes, and it's bigger than a hobbyist saw, but it's nowhere near enough to run an industrial sawmill operation. So that is the difference between what we do and a sawmill. Any other questions about that?
Yes. So
Okay.
you're stating that you're not a sawmill because your volume is less than other sawmills in New Mexico.
And we produce craft level individual items from our saw, not production lumber. And furthermore, your question is probably irrelevant because even though it's not specifically listed as a permissive use in Corrales, it's also not forbidden in any way, shape, or form. So,
Okay. So you're the.
I mean, if you want to call it a sawmill, call it a sawmill.
The expansion of your business it's under Dendro Technology, right?
Correct, yes.
So, and you haven't changed the name or the type of business in the
Well,
secretary?
actually, if you look at our website, which I know you've done, you'll see that we have, our business is actually called Dendro Technology Tin Shed Millworks. And when we have our woodworking business open, our woodworking shop open, where we intend to process the planks into furniture and other wood items, then we'll be using the name Tin Shed Millworks for that part of the business.
So you don't have a woodworking business open right now?
No, we if you look on the website, there's a tab that says Tin Shed Millworks, and that shows the products that we make with the planks from Dendro Technology.
Did I mishear you? You stated when you open, and I'm assuming this is part of the expansion, when you open, that's when you're going to begin the woodworking. It's going to be part
No,
of,
you misheard me.
okay.
Yeah,
What is the new building going to consist of, and what are you using it for?
It is a approximately 2,400 square foot building. And it will be used, well, there's actually a really nice little summary in your packet. We intend to use it for making furniture and other products out of our planks that we make. And also to add value to those planks, the ones that we sell to other people, by sanding them and planing them and flattening them and making them more ready for people to process into furniture.
What kind of machinery will you be using?
Before you continue, Mr. Toller, I just want to let you know, Ms. De Niro, that you're at your 20 minutes. I don't know how you can proceed however you want, but you're at 20 minutes as of right now.
Thank you. What kind of machinery will you be using, Mr. Toller?
Standard cabinet shop woodworking machinery.
Can you give a list of the type of machines?
We haven't purchased them yet, but we anticipate having a wide belt sander, which is a substantial machine, similar to the one over at Ideum. I don't know if Ideum has one. Blue Sky Woodworking had one in that building. Table saw, a joiner, a surface planer, all similar to the machinery that was at Blue Sky Woodworking or Ideum. Eventually, we hope to have what's called a CNC router. Again, standard woodworking shop equipment, and a dust collector.
And where are you doing the woodworking right now if that shop isn't open?
In my driveway and also in the tin shed on the Dendro Technology property.
And is that emitting noise?
You're asking me?
You're doing the work, correct?
Yeah. It makes a lot of noise. And we'd rather be doing it indoors so that we don't make more noise.
And
But I haven't heard anybody complain about it.
and this is in where you live, in your neighborhood, or is it?
Yeah, in my neighborhood.
Okay, so currently,
Well, partly in my neighborhood and partly at Dendro Technology.
so where at Dendro Technology?
In the yard, out in the open.
Okay,
Near actually, there's a section of the tin shed where we work.
and who are your primary customers?
Pretty wide group, from hobbyists to furniture makers to general contractors, that sort of people.
Including woodworkers?
Yeah, lots of woodworkers.
Okay, and are you doing more of the sawing right now as opposed to woodworking?
The bulk of our income currently is from making planks for other people to buy.
And would you call that sawmilling or sawing?
Okay, sure. Sawing, yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to show you, well, before I put up an exhibit, I wanted to ask you about the safeguards that you have. What kind of safeguards do you have in place? Because this is big machinery. You're saying there's machinery for woodworking kind of just open right now because you don't have the building, and you also have the other machinery. What kind of safeguards do you have in place for this machinery?
Well, we have all of the guards and safety devices that come with the machine are engaged. None of them have been disconnected. We have been trained to use the machine by the manufacturer. We wear sound and dust collection, dust protection, which is standard practice in any woodworking shop. And we are careful. That's what any woodworking business would do. And by the way, I can tell you that I ran my own business for 20 years in a much larger business with much more complicated and dangerous machinery, and we had a very good OSHA rating and a very low EMR. So.
And you have safeguards against, a small child or somebody who is not aware if they were to go into your property, and, do you have measures in place to protect from that, since it could be considered an attractive nuisance, especially to a young child?
The machinery doesn't work unless we're there working it. And so we have there's simply no way that a child could be injured by coming onto our property with the saw. But that's an interesting question.
Okay, so I submitted an exhibit later today. I don't know if everybody received it. It's considered Exhibit 10. So Aaron, I don't know if that's something that needs to be put up on the screen, or if everybody received a copy.
Yes, I'm going to put it up on the screen right now if you give me just a moment.
Thank you. And just because time is of the essence, I'm going to continue asking questions regarding, so what you're saying is that you don't necessarily have safeguards put in place, especially for a small child that could, and if your business is considered an attractive nuisance, which would attract a small child, especially in a neighborhood area where there's kids and school not too far away, you don't necessarily have safeguards in place, but you don't operate unless you're there. So that's your answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm not following what you're trying to elicit from me, but why don't you ask me another question?
Okay, this document here, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at it.
Working in a sawmill. All right.
It's from the OSHA website, and what it states is that working in a sawmill is one of the most dangerous occupations in the United States.
Yeah.
And interesting enough that this statement here also includes woodworking operations of a sawmill. And from what your testimony has stated today is that you're both a sawmill and a woodworking operation. So here it does, state and list all of the dangers and the hazards associated with such a heavy machinery type of business. And so do you think that an expansion of your woodworking operation, which is part of the sawmill because you have a saw, do you think that that is an appropriate business to be operating in the middle of a neighborhood?
Well, you're asking a complex question. So if you're first of all, I kind of think that the safety of the thing is really not what we're talking about. But if you want to use your time for this, let's go. If you're worried about a small child wandering onto our property and having a problem, it seems to me that you would want us to have our business completely enclosed in a building that a child couldn't get in to save them from the dangers of our business. As far as the safety of the business, there's a small child right there. We have a sick baby in the house. I'm sorry. Hey, go on, get out of here. So am I still on video? Or no, I guess it's because this thing is up here.
We can see it. We can see you, sir. Continue.
Okay, good. So if we have a building to house our operation, I think it would be a lot safer for the neighborhood than if that's what you're worried about.
With
As
the-
far as our safety, I am a trained and qualified woodworker. And my son is learning the trade, but as he has as much at stake as I do, and we're not too worried about our own safety.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toller. I have no further questions. I'd like to call my last witness, because I just have a few minutes.
Yeah, you have about 2 minutes left, Ms. De Niro.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
want to call Antoinette. Hope you're still there, Antoinette. We can't hear you if you're on. There you go.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay, thank you, Antoinette. We have very little time, so I just like you to make your statement about how you feel about the expansion of the Dendro technology.
And just real
Okay.
quick, Antoinette, if you would just state your name and your address, and then if you do swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. My name is
then-
Antoinette Roybal. I'm at 4372.5 Corrales Road. And I do, I will follow all.
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. You're urbanizing this Corrales. The peacefulness and the quietness is gone, by expanding a business that shouldn't even be here. And it is a sawmill. Whatever you call it, you can call it gizmo, whatever. But it is a sawmill. Every operation that they do points to a sawmill. A sawmill has no place in a village. And where on your Corrales rules and regulations said that state how far a business can run, any business can run to near a household? It's very disturbing. It is very disturbing. The noise and the peace and quiet is gone with having a sawmill next to my property, and expanding it would only expand the noise and the aesthetic and the peacefulness, quietness. It would just ruin everything as it is right now.
I think if I have even 30 seconds, Aaron, I'd just like to exhibit or introduce my exhibit, I believe it's 11. And if we can just put that on and I can wrap it up.
Yep, absolutely. Give me 1 second. I'm getting it up right now.
Okay, and Aaron, if you don't mind, just kind of, I don't think I can, if you could just scroll down and Antoinette, can you just explain while he's scrolling down what this is?
That's the I don't know, that the where they store the saw.
So that's Dendro technology, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. And does this demonstrate why you believe it's a sawmill as opposed to just a woodworking shop?
I don't see any wood being worked there. To me, it's just they want a factory there. A factory has no place for what next? They're going to allow more sawmills, more factories, more manufacturing in Corrales, close to my home. I mean, it's right next to my home.
And Ms. De Niro, if you would go ahead and wrap up in the next 30 seconds to a minute, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Ms. De Niro, I'm not going to take away from your time. I just want the record to reflect that the pictures and the statement from OSHA is part of the record. The only thing that the council did not allow in were the recordings. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you, Antoinette. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it up so your testimony, your examination is over. So I just want to conclude by stating that the committee has heard from my clients, both Janae and Antoinette Roybal, who live directly across from the Dendro technology where a sawmill is currently existing. As you heard, Apelli admitted that it is a sawmill. I know he had a long definition, but at the end he did conclude and admit that it is a sawmill, but also woodworking shop is going to be expanded. That's the whole purpose of the building. And that building, he has stated, appears to be, I guess, a good reason to, or a good thing, because all the machinery will go inside that building with the exception of the saw. And so from my client's perspective, and Mr. Toller, you can respond if you think I stated things incorrectly, but I'm just gonna wrap it up. The reason why we believe that the actual sound of the saw is still relevant and very important is because the expansion of this business is only gonna add to the existing noise, annoyance, and irritation that is already occurring right now, that is ongoing. Mr. Toller does not live there. He does not have to deal with the existing sound. Yes, he does have family members that live on that property, but they actually live on Corellis Road, far further from the saw, where my client actually lives closer than the person who lives on that property does. And so they're hearing the direct sound and the irritation. That we also brought up safety concerns and whether or not it's OSHA compliant. I think that's something that the board should look into. There are safety measures and hazards that may be presented, and the village of Corellis may also be liable if anything terrible was to happen, and God forbid anything like that happened to a small child, especially because I think your grandchild lives on that property. And so anyway, in a conclusion, my clients do appeal the expansion and would also ask that the commission take a second look at the plan that was already approved, because we don't believe that it is legal under the current zoning, the zoning laws as of this time.
Thank you, Ms. De Niro. Mr. Toller, you now have an opportunity to cross-examine the appellant's witnesses. Do you wish to do that? You're muted, sir. You're muted.
No questions for the appellant's witnesses.
Okay, so then you can go ahead and proceed with your case.
Okay, so we've seen the appeal letter and the new exhibits, and it's exactly the same stuff that they brought up in the previous 4 times that we've been before the P&Z and the council, because Mrs. Roybal appeared to protest our commercial zoning, even though that was, way back a year or more ago. None of what's been presented here, I told Mrs. De Niro that Ms. De Niro that I didn't want to take up her time, but she wanted me to, so I addressed some of it, but none of what they presented is relative to the matter before the council. They're not appealing the site development plan, phase 2. They're not making any valid objection to our building. If we were made to do so, we could answer all the distortions and the half-truths and the outright falsehoods contained in the appeal letters and the exhibits, but we shouldn't have to. And these matters have already been addressed by P&Z in our original site development plan. The decisions of P&Z on these matters were all upheld on appeal by this council that I'm in front of right now. And I will note that the accusations of malfeasance and deception leveled at the P&Z and at me are really offensive. And I think they have no place in this discussion, and I think they should have been stricken from the record. Also, I'll note that because I was afraid that she would hijack the proceedings and send it down this rabbit holes, we did put a few exhibits in, including I think at least 5 letters of support from our neighbors, including Sue and Brian Wally, who are, while they're not as close as Mrs. Roybal to our operation, they're less than 50 feet further away. We really feel like that the council should support the decision of the P&Z at our last appearance there and focus on the matter that we brought to the P&Z. And that's approval of the construction of our woodworking shop. I put a narrative in your packet that gives a brief summary of our plans, and I also talked to Mr. Nero a little about them. We'll be glad to answer any questions about our plans for the shop and the issues related to that. I'll also point out that although in our original site development hearing, we were given a year to build the visual barrier on the Hanson Road side of the property. In our revised site development plan hearing, this was changed and we were required to build the barrier immediately. And there was some insinuation that we were stalling or that we were negligent in not building the barrier. That was not the case. We had a year to build it. We were trying to marshal our resources and work on developing the business. But at the time of that planning and zoning hearing, we already had the steel posts in for the fence, and right after it, we put up the 8-foot barrier. The ordinance requires a 6-foot barrier in the part of the property immediately abutting Mrs. Royball's property. We put up an 8-foot barrier, and we have the rest of the material for the 6-foot. It's like another 100 feet. We've ordered it. It's been delayed because of COVID and the increased demand, but we have about a third of it on the property now, and we'll be completing the rest of the barrier as soon as we can, which I think the photographs that were presented in the last exhibit were particularly irrelevant, but now they're really irrelevant because all that stuff you can't see. Well, the last one that was presented wasn't even of our property; it was somebody else's property. But you won't be able to see it because we'll have a 6-foot visual barrier, even if you don't like it. Everybody else seems to like it, but they won't be able to see it anymore because of the 6-foot barrier. That's my statement. I'd really like some direction from the council as to what, if any, parts of the appellant's statement they want a response to. I'm prepared to respond, but we just really don't think that any of it is relevant or admissible by the standards that you set forth. And we think you should just vote to uphold the P&Z decision and not have any further delay.
Thank you, Mr. Toller. And now, just for the record, I just want to make sure I clarify the record. You did not intend or do not intend to call witnesses today?
No witnesses.
Okay. Okay.
Well, excuse me. No witnesses unless we're compelled to answer something irrelevant that I may need a witness for, but I don't anticipate it.
Well, at this point, it's your case to present. So, I mean, if you want to call witnesses, you can.
No witnesses.
Okay. All right. Then if that's the case, we will move into any questions that the governing body may have for either party. And like I asked you just to go through me and we'll get those questions answered. Councilor Burkett.
I do have one question, and it is in regard to noise. It's less in regard to what's happening now. I'd just be curious to hear your answer. If the development that you are proposing, if you expect that to increase the noise, and what kind of equipment would be there if there was going to be an increase in noise from what we're looking at today? If you could kind of quantify that, I'd appreciate that.
Councilor, Mr. Toller, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we should check to see if Ms. DeNiro has any questions on cross-exam of Mr. Toller before we proceed with council questions. I apologize.
And thank you, Mr. Audio, for clarifying that. I was of the understanding that it was just the witnesses she would be able to cross-examine, but upon your advice, she will have that. She'll have that opportunity if she does wish to. Ms. DeNiro?
Yes, I would like to.
And just to clarify, it will be on any issues raised during the examination itself.
Okay. And would it be after the counselors ask their questions, or it would be right now?
Right.
Right now,
Right now, and it's, okay. And how much time do I have?
Ms. De Niro, you have relevant questions. You can ask relevant questions based upon the statements of Mr. Toller in his case. There's not a time limit, but we will limit you if you seem to be adding other matters or going astray from the instructions.
I understand. Okay. Mr. Teller, you stated in your statement that the photographs that were just identified here at the very last exhibit aren't representative of what the property looks like right now because of a fence having gone up.
No.
Or, okay.
Incorrect.
Can you explain that, please, or clarify?
I said that the photographs are particularly irrelevant because we are required to put up a visual barrier. It's not up yet, but when it's up, you won't be able to see any of that, what was in those photographs. And I also stated that the last photograph was not a photograph of our property.
And okay, Aaron, can you please bring up those exhibits or that exhibit of those photos, just so we can be clear that there's no misunderstanding?
Right. And I would also like to ask what relevance this has and get some support from the village, the village lawyer. What relevance does this have to the building that we're proposing?
What's your response, Ms. De Niro?
You raised it in your statement, and so now I'm asking for clarification.
Well, but ma'am, you introduced the exhibits. He commented on them.
Yes.
But as to the relevance for the pending application, that is a question I had as well.
Well, I have an answer and I have a question that's relevant. Do any of those photos demonstrate where your building is going to be?
No.
It doesn't show.
Well, actually, there's one that might have the tail end of the eastern end of the building might appear. I mean, but the building is entirely to the east of where those photographs are taken.
Okay, and I would like to see the photograph that you've stated on the record that is not part of your property.
Okay. It's the last one. That one.
So is there any fencing dividing that property where it's cut off to the left?
Yeah, this is taken outside the fence. It's Charlie Otero's property.
Okay.
And it's outside it's to the east of the fence, probably 20 feet to the east of our property. There's a 10-foot coyote fence between my property and Charlie's property, and this is not on our property at all.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And Aaron,
Yeah.
if you take it to the next, to the photograph immediately.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. You broke up for me.
The photograph that's immediately before this one, the second to the last.
Yeah.
Mr. Teller,
Right.
where would that building be?
You can't, it's nowhere near this picture. It's to this is looking north towards the existing structure, and the new building would be about 30 feet would begin about, I'm going to say 20 feet to the 30 feet to the east, to the west of this building.
Okay, and you stated before that the building that you are building is going to help reduce noise.
No, I did not state that.
Okay, will it help reduce noise?
It will have no net effect on the noise.
And how can you make that determination?
Because we're going to build it with proper sound insulation to bring it to as close as possible or exceed the insulation and soundproofing at the Ideum former Blue Sky Woodworks building. We're using that as our model. And that is a building that will have very similar machinery to ours. And our goal is to have it be, and also to have sufficient cooling and heating that we would never have to operate with the doors open, with the specific intention of not contributing to the net volume of sound. And I'm not going to say it's going to be silent, but it should not be, the operations inside that building should not be able to be heard from our property line. And if they are, it will be way below the ambient noise level. And that's my goal, our goal.
Will the saw go into that building?
Not at this time.
So does that mean it will at some point?
We hope in the future to be able to convert the saw to electricity, but we're not guaranteeing that we'll do that. It's only if we can do it and if we can afford to do it. And if so, then we'll be able to enclose the saw and have it be, it won't go in the building, but we may be able to enclose it in the building that it's in right now.
So the saw will never go into the new building?
No, that's not the plan.
Okay, but you possibly could enclose an electric saw, which may reduce noise.
Right, but this is entirely conjecture. We have no current plan to do so. We'll do it if we can down the road.
Okay, and you stated that you put up some fencing since I believe it was the March 17th hearing.
Yes.
How much of that is not complete?
It kind of depends on how you count it. We have the area that we're focusing on though is, let's see, it's about 160 lineal feet of fence from the corner of the tin shed. You have to look on the plan to see it. The corner of the tin shed down to the 350-foot mark is about 160 feet. We've got about 60 feet up. That's 8 foot tall. And then the balance is 6 feet, and that will be another 100 feet. We have 30 some odd feet of that on the property ready to put up, and the rest of it is supposed to be delivered in the next 6 to 8 weeks. They're not making any promises yet.
And you can't proceed with the expansion of the building until the rest of the fence is built?
I don't think that's my understanding. I guess I would have to go to the P&Z administrator and ask her for a reading of the exact language, because my understanding is that we were supposed to begin construction of the fence immediately and do it concurrently with the building of the building. We've actually started it before we started building the building. And I don't know if there's a requirement that we have to have it complete before the building is built. If that's the case, fine, no problem. If it's going to happen anyway, because it's going to take us 3 or 4 months to build the building. What are you trying to establish? I'll tell you, but
I want to know when it's going to be completed and if it's going to be completed prior.
As soon as we possibly can, and it will be completed before the building is complete.
Okay, and I have one more question related to the fencing. So is the fencing going to help with like as an additional sound barrier, or to help just block the view? Or is it
the fencing is required by the ordinance of the village between a commercial property and a residential property, even though in this case, the residential property except for the area where Mrs. Royball's house is, the residential property already has a 7-foot visual barrier. We're adding an additional 6-foot visual barrier, and it will have some mitigating effect on the sound, but that's not why it's being built.
And it will have some, why will it have some effect on the sound? Because you're adding,
Because sound bounces off solid fencing,
okay,
and the fence is solid.
so just incidentally, it's going to
Yeah.
have some sound barrier. And have you added any kind of sound barrier just due to these appeals?
Not due to the appeals, we built a rather effective sound barrier on the saw before the first appeal, because we understood that our saw was creating an annoyance, and so we mitigated it.
Okay. Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. At this point, I will look to the governing body to ask any questions they may have. Councilor Murray?
Thank you, Pro Tem Mayor and councilors. Mr. Toller, are you planning on putting any exterior lights on your building, and will it conform to the dark
No.
skies regulations?
No lights are planned. No lights are planned.
Well, I mean, typically, most commercial businesses like to have some kind of an exterior lamp at some point, but I mean, just,
Well, we don't need it, and we understand that it's an issue, and we're not planning on putting any lights.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Parker?
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, Ms. Stout, to your knowledge, are there any zoning violations happening on this piece of property right now?
There are none.
In this application for this site development plan, is the building location requiring any variances to the existing building code or the zoning code for the village?
The only thing that was a condition of approval was that in the commercial zone, you can't have a metal clad building. So similar to what Ex Novo Brewery did on their metal building, one of the conditions is that the applicant's going to have to work with our building official on some sort of cover the metal building with some clad in something that's village code compliant, like wood and batten or something of that nature.
Okay, but as far as setbacks, it's complying with all the existing zoning ordinances?
Correct. Correct.
And then when forgive me for not finding the answer myself, when the original site development plan for the approved use on this property was done, were there any limitations put on that, like quantitative limitations put on that approval?
There were not.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me?
Thank
Am
you, Councilor Parker. Thank you. Mr. Toller, this is just for councilors to ask questions.
I
Right
wanted
now.
to answer.
I didn't-
Okay.
No,
sorry.
our administrator answered it.
Okay,
answered the
fine.
question. Councilor Parker, did you get your question answered to your?
No, it's they were exactly what I thought I was going to hear.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other councilors that have any questions? Okay, I have one question, and it's just because I just don't know. Is there, and I think you referred to it earlier, is there a residence on this piece of property right now?
Yes.
There is. Does anybody live there?
Yes.
Okay. What are your hours of operation?
Our hours of operation are 8 to 5 Mondays through Fridays, and 8 to noon on Saturdays.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toller. At this point, if there's no other questions by the councilors, oh, I'm sorry, almost.
Yeah, Mr. Toller, I don't think this is how it works, but it is, your saw running is not consistent. I read in the information that we were given that it runs for maybe like 10 minutes and then it stops.
Yes,
And then, later on, it may run for 15 minutes and then it stops.
Yes,
So it's
that's
not
right.
continuous all day long.
not continuous, no.
Okay,
And
thank you.
May I add also that we run the saw 3 days a week, maybe, and 4 hours a day. We almost, to my recollection, we've never run it more than after 9, but before 9:30 in the morning, and never, as far as I can remember, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, it's not continuous. So just to give you an idea of actually, that's not relevant. So let's move on. Sorry.
Thank you for the information.
Are there any other questions from the governing body? Okay, at this point, I will close the hearing, and the governing body will deliberate, and the village council may make a determination in open session or decide to deliberate in closed session as allowed by the Open Meetings Act. All decisions must be made in public. The governing body may grant the appeal and reverse the P and Z decision, deny the appeal and affirm the decision by the P and Z, modify the decision with the new findings, or remand the case back to P and Z if the record before the governing body is not sufficient to ensure its decision will be in compliance with the village or other governing laws. Once a decision is made, then there will be a direction to our attorney to prepare a written decision and findings of fact and conclusion of law supporting the governing body's decision based on the facts established in the record. The hearing date shall be set at that time for a vote on the form of decision as soon as practicable. After the approval of the final decision, the appeal will be concluded. Now, what's the pleasure of this council? Would you like to deliberate in open session, or would you like to close it? Councilor Knight?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to go to a closed session at this time.
Okay. Anybody else? Is that the preference? Does anybody else have any objection?
No
So,
objection.
Mr. Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, you'll need a second on that, and then a motion, voice vote by all councilors to go into a closed session.
Okay. Councilor Knight?
I don't think there was a second yet.
No. You're moving
Yeah,
to go
I
into
move
closed
that we
session.
go to a closed session.
Okay, do I have a
I'll
second?
second that. I'll second
Okay.
that.
Councilor Parker?
Sorry, late with the mute. Yes.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woven?
Aye.
And my vote is aye. So we will now go into closed session. Aaron, if you can take us there.
Yeah, if you'll give me just one moment, thank you.
Thank you.
How will this work in terms of us getting back in?
So what will happen, Rick, and for everyone, is that council is going to go into its own breakout room, only for the council. They're going to let me know whenever they're done. And then once they're done, they'll come back into the open session. You won't have to do anything. You and I and the remainder outside the council will remain in open session. Council will go into closed session, and then whenever they're done, Kevin will text me and let me know when they're done, and then we can close the breakout room and they'll automatically join.
So,
And to clarify,
we don't know how long this is going to take or anything.
Mr. Toller and folks, I will also be in the closed session. I don't suspect this will be a very long process, but we'll get back as quick as we can.
Okay, so we'll just wait.
Yeah, and if you'll give me just one moment, it takes me a moment to reassign everyone, so I'm almost there. Yeah, and then Mayor Pro Tem, if you'll just either call me or text me whenever you're done in closed session, I will let you back in. So
Thank you, Aaron.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect.
by the governing body as allowed by exceptions of the Open Meetings Act. No other matter was discussed and no action was taken. And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we need a voice vote to confirm that that's all true.
Thank you. We will take another roll call vote. Counselor Woolman,
Aye.
Counselor Murray.
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Parker.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't believe you voted in that last round.
I'm sorry. I thought I did. Mayor Pro Tem Councilor Lucero is an aye.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to ask for a motion. Councilor Parker.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, I move to deny the appeal and affirm the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval to the Site Development Plan 21-02.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I will take another roll call vote. Counselor Murray.
Aye.
Counselor Burkett.
Aye.
Counselor Knight.
Aye.
Counselor Parker.
Aye.
Counselor Woolman.
Aye.
And I, Counselor Lucero, is aye. The council has now made a decision, and I'm going to direct our counsel, Randy Audio, to prepare the findings, conclusions, and decision of the governing body. The document will be prepared and will be distributed to confirm this vote and will be voted on a date we will now decide. Aaron?
So by my, and I'll also defer to Randy here, if he believes he can get a copy to me by Friday, we would be able to get this on the agenda for the May 25th meeting. If not, it will have to wait until the June meeting, which I am blanking on, so I will look that up right now.
Councilors, I will work with Ms. Lori Stout, and we will complete those findings and conclusions for next week's meeting.
And again, just if not, it would be at the June 15th meeting.
Okay. So either the 25th or the June, I'm sorry, Aaron?
Yeah, so we're gonna try to have it on the June 25th meeting
No,
for
May
the
25th.
March 25th.
I'm sorry, the May
May
25th
25th.
meeting, and that will be the approval of the form of the conclusions, findings, and then if something does go wrong, which I don't expect, we'll have it for sure on the June 15th meeting at the latest.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Mr. Toller?
Do we have to be present at that meeting?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Mr. Audio, he doesn't have to be present.
You may be there, but because it's the adoption of this decision and the findings and conclusions, there does not need to be any input from you if you agree with them. If you see the agenda and you think there's something that's gone horribly wrong, then you should come and tell us about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Audio, is there any other business we should address?
I think a vote to adjourn, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion to move? Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Woolman. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.